For our guest today, this upcoming season will mark his 17th year at the helm of the program here at UM, making him the longest tenured head coach currently in the Grizzly athletic department. In 2024, he was named Big Sky Conference Coach of the Year for a third time in his career after leading the Grizz to a share of the league title. His previous Coach of the Year honors were in 2012 and 2014. In addition to their successes on the court, his players consistently earn academic honors and accolades at both the campus and conference levels. Head women's tennis coach Steve Ascher, welcome to the Montana Grizzly Leadership Project.
Charlie, thanks for having me.
All right, super excited about getting to chat leadership with you today. We have a lot of conversations over many years, and so I'm really excited about getting a chance to get it on tape and getting some of your thoughts specifically in this leadership arena. So you worked the assistant coach ranks for 6 years in both men's and women's programs before being named a head coach. You were first a head coach at Portland State, and then you became the head coach here at UM. What was that jump to head coach like for you? And how did working as an assistant help in your leadership development?
Yeah, good question. Fortunate enough, when I was done with my playing career, I was invited back to coach as an assistant for men's and women's teams at my alma mater.
Which would have been University of Portland, just to orient
Which
folks
would have been University of
geographically.
Portland. Yeah, which would have been University of Portland. So, and from that get-go, there was just so much to learn in terms of the coaching business. I had never coached females before, and the game in the 90s for the females and males was very different. So I think in terms of making the jump, I think it took a lot of time for me to transition from being a player into a coaching role. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate enough, though, to have incredible mentors. So Aaron Gross at the University of Portland, he's still coaching, and he's an incredible presence on the West Coast and nationally. All-Americans, players that are played in world rankings and everywhere beyond. So having mentors like Aaron Gross, and then when I coached on women's teams, I was fortunate enough to have female head coaches. And I felt like that was a lot of help in terms of them helping me understand the game and what they wanted. And then I think it was maybe my second year as an assistant coach, somebody, and I can't remember, because one of the big things that really helped my coaching career is, and this is before the internet and all these things, so it was a lot of travel.
Yeah.
But I used to go at least 4 or 5 times a year. I would connect with head coaches from other universities and take the time on my time to go meet with them and ask them questions. And they were incredibly open to allowing me to come to watch practices and see their philosophies, get to know their philosophies, what makes their programs tick. So it was a big learning curve for years. And I got to do it at the Division II level at a high level, and I got to do it at the Division I level. But I think having those mentors that I could really bounce ideas off and really learn from was a crucial experience. So by the time I became a head coach for the men's and women's teams at Portland State, I felt that I was ready to go on my own adventure. Like I had always, like towards the end of being an assistant, I knew that it was my job as an assistant coach to do the best job I could of understanding the philosophy and the direction and the goals that the head coach wanted. And it was my job as an assistant to do everything in my power to help them achieve those. Mm-hmm. And I felt that I was successful in the sense that I think there was like 5 or 6, the head coaches that I worked with had 5 or 6 head coach of the year awards in their conference or nationally. And we won. Like, you're trying to figure out what did you do to succeed in sports? It's winning. In all honesty, it's winning.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
there's
metrics you can use, but it's winning. So by the time I got that Portland State job, I felt like there's so many things that I want to try and experiment with that I couldn't do, but I had kept notes and journals of stuff I wanted to progress with in my coaching career. but I had a really firm grip on knowing my role as an assistant was crucial to that head coach of being successful, and feeling that they could trust me to do, if they asked me to do anything, whether it's driving a van to University of Washington with the team, or hey, set up the travel for this year, or go recruit this player. I wanted them to feel that I would get the job done for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And others that we've had on have talked about that, about their kind of assistant coach times and how challenging it was for them, because age-wise, you're very similar in age, oftentimes, to the players now that you're coaching.
Yeah.
Because if you've stepped into that assistant role pretty closely to when you just last played,
Yeah.
and yet you're in a different position now. You're not one of them anymore. You're not a player anymore. You are a coach, and yet it's just challenging ground to navigate as a young assistant. But then I guess one of the other threads that's come out, like you just mentioned, is this commitment to the head coach of like, I'm going to do my best to help this person, her or him, be successful. That's one of my primary roles then as an assistant. So you're just kind of echoing what a lot of others have said.
That's awesome, because it is. And I was, fortunately, in some ways, I was able to coach, like start my coaching career with my alma mater, but that was very challenging to set boundaries.
Because you're how old at that point?
I was 23 or 24, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you know, and those days were a little bit more of the Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different time, different atmosphere. Athletes played hard and they got after life hard.
Yeah.
And so to separate that boundary was a really important. And again, I think I didn't have to go it alone. Like, I had coaches and I had mentors that I really trusted and believed in, that gave me the insight. And so honestly, I just had to like listen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think a lot of people think they have to figure it out themselves. It's like, this journey's been happening for a lot of years for a lot of people. So ask questions and listen, and then just go do your job.
And in your case, then seek out really, really good coaches to get their perspectives. And it sounds like these folks were super willing to step in and be a resource for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, you know, obviously you mentioned I've been now a head coach for a while, and I'm in that, but it's amazing how people think they know what they need to do. And so I've been at this a long time, and I don't get asked many questions from anybody. And I don't know if that's, you know, in Montana, it's different being a head coach in Montana for any sport, because you're put in this weird pedestal, but you're just a normal human being out there working on a craft. So you're good at your craft. I find that piece interesting. Like, because I was so thirsty for knowledge, because I felt like the only way I was going to get better is like constantly pushing against the door of trying to figure out, how do I get better at my craft? And the beauty was, when I was a player, I wouldn't coach in the summers. It's easy money to do as a player, but I wanted to maximize my time as a player. And so if I stepped on a court, I want to be playing. I didn't want to be coaching somebody else's kids, because then I'm like, that's taking away the energy and time that if I got done coaching for 4 hours that day, which would be good, I'd have a couple $100 in my pocket. But then would I want to go back out and hit for 2 or 3 hours on the court a day? And I started late, so I'm like, I had to catch up. And so I think my journey athletically and coaching wise has been, it's interesting. It's all led on the narrative. I didn't play tennis until I was 15, 16. And I was a 4-sport athlete. And so I love the idea of changing and then being coachable, you know? And I think that I was talking to a lawyer or an instructor in the law school, and she said, if one of our students is coachable, she's like, that will be the first thing I write on their letter of recommendation. And I was like, that's fascinating, because being coachable, people say it, but it's an art. Like, it's listening and asking questions and then being willing to try. And so I think that really helped me in terms of my progression in the coaching profession.
Yeah.
And you go in with a smile and you're happy and you are thankful and gracious, and it's amazing what people will share. They wanna, like, coaches want to share sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we do sit on stuff, sure, if we think it's an advantage. There is that too.
It's one of their values, it seems.
Yeah.
Or it's something that their educators, their teachers.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts when you hear that you're the elder statesman, that you're the senior person coaching wise in the athletic department?
Yeah. It's happened for a while in tennis, I think in the Big Sky as well. It's interesting. When I first came out, like you'd mentioned, I think this is my 6th school I coached at as an assistant or head. When I came here, I hadn't coached at a school longer than 2 years. And the reason being is that I was progressing. I went to different universities to go get further education, and I went to continue to climb up in terms of levels. So you always want to be progressing up in terms of a coach. When I came here, we'd had our first daughter. I was getting tired of moving around a lot, of shifting constantly. And that's part of our profession.
It
is that. And so when I came here and I interviewed, we had Hackney in the equipment room. Stack was in there as well, so 20 plus years. Selvig was the women's coach, 20 plus years. Chris Nord was the men's coach, 20 plus, and men's and women's tennis coach, 20 plus years. So when I was looking at that, I really liked the idea of the longevity that was established by those peoples coming forth. So you never knew. But then we came here and we had another kid and had some other things, life, It's really interesting coaching. In some ways it's a young person's game because, cognitively the young people have fluidity, they're creative, they're spark, they have nothing holding them down. So like as a young person, you could coach in for hours. That's all you did. And you thought about it and you grinded and
all this energy
you're trying to get
motivation.
Anders Ericsson's 10,000 hours in 10 years. You're shooting for that goal. And I think, but once you have kids and then there's some shifts in you as a mature adult and you grow as a human, which we're hoping we all do.
Yeah.
There's a big shift. But then coaching right now is fascinating because now you're moving from fluid to the crystallized intelligence piece. And I find the synthesis of information right now is a huge spark for me, coaching wise. But it's totally different than when I was a young one. All I wanted to do was get wins.
Yeah.
That to 35, it was strictly to win, and create legacies through winning. And now it's shifted, and it's because I'm different as a human being.
Yeah. That's so interesting because it seems like in order to survive, you have to have some sort of balance, right? Work life. And yet so often it seems in coaching or other realms, you have to be out of balance.
Yeah.
Almost to put the time in and the energy and the commitment and all that to really get good at your craft, to get good at your trade. You have to be out of balance. Same as an athlete, right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have balance as an athlete because you're so committed. Same seems to apply as a coach. And yet if you're out of balance, you're not going to last very long.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a interesting idea, the balance piece, because I just don't buy it. like I believe that I need to have, I like the idea, I need to have strong relationships. I need to have them on, obviously with the team, but I need them outside of my just personally, I do. I'm an extrovert. So I need to work on and cultivating friendships. And so that's something, in the relationship with my wife is huge. The relationship with my kids is huge, and the relationship with my friends. So I think that cultivation, but it's never on balance. And I don't even know if it's ever going in that direction because I'm like, well, I always want to go this way goal-wise. And so I just feel that I've been programmed since an early age. It's like, it's go time towards something. So my balance is probably progression and movement, where somebody else is I always see people and I'm like, God, I wish I was relaxed like that. I wish I could enjoy a movie or go to a Hawaii and enjoy the beach. I don't get it. I don't get it, but I wish I did.
Yeah.
So, but the balance is fascinating because it's like, even thinking about the department, I don't know too many people in the department that are like, you wouldn't say, oh, that person's balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea.
So you recently earned your Certified Mental Performance Consultant certification from the Association for Applied Sports Psychology, which
Correct.
is a really big deal. There's about 1,300 CMPCs in the world today.
Oh, wow.
So how does your background in sports psychology help you lead?
Yeah, it's a great question. And thank you to you.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. And then
You're welcome.
You spent a lot of time with me and were very gracious and helped a lot. So it's a nice accolade, I guess. I don't know if it's accolade. It's a nice professional piece for sure. Every day. I mean, originally when I graduated in college in '96, my goal was to become a sports psychologist. And to go, and so I went and worked on my first step was a master's in clinical psychology because I talked with and I took some sports psychology courses at Portland State, and I had a professor and mentor there that guided me into the direction of clinical psych, I think, which was brilliant. It's always been on the forefront. As a player, I was a wreck. So I think it's interesting as coaches. I would be fascinating to see how their narrative, if they did play college sports and they are now college coaches, I'd be fascinated to see how their narrative as a player has driven their who they are as a coach. So I was always driven. I could go hours and listen. I was fit and all these other things, but mentally I was just like so perfectionistic, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was so perfectionistic that it drove like anger. And an unfortunate piece for me is that I had coaches that in other sports and basketball in particular that they saw the intensity and anger as a plus. And so it was cultivated,
Mm-hmm.
and I used it, but I didn't know how to use it because I was young.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to use it as a skill without it blowing up and becoming really angry and destructive, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So that guided me. I did at the time in the 90s. You had Jim Lair, and he's still prevalent in the field. He's brilliant. But it was books. And maybe a VHS tape of his target zone systems.
Yeah.
But it was books. Like in Portland, I was fortunate enough. I had this entity called Powell's Bookstore, and it's one of the biggest bookstores in America downtown. And so you could go there and you could get these books about anything. So I'd get sports psychology, and I remember, doing goal setting and visualization and pieces like that. And so that was my drive to go become a sports psychologist. So I got into clinical, and then ever since that, even those pieces, I just started translating over when I was coaching with, and that was at Millersville University in Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So, and those teams were incredible. I think they're in the Hall of Fame now. But those teams, especially the women's team there, because I did both men's and women's, but they allowed me to start kind of experimenting. It's a weird gig being in graduate school and getting pumped full of theory. And then you're like, yeah, and there's like a term for it, like the something dulling effect or something. Like you get this information, then you feel like you're an expert,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not true. But
Because there's the application piece
Yes.
Ultimately
there's
where the rubber meets the road.
right. So anyway, I would fiddle around with the stuff constantly, and some of it stuck, and some was like, that's not good, and that's. And I don't need that kind of door doesn't need to be opened.
Mm-hmm.
But so the blending between, the technical, tactical, mental piece, and everyone will say it's 80% mental, but nobody who does it. And it's getting,
Yeah.
and it's what's fascinating is we're getting more and more of it. And it seems like we're getting further and further from the application in watching athletes. Cause it's like, wow, how can that be happening right now? But yeah, I was experimenting, utilizing it. And I've always been, I think in terms of who I am as a coach, I've always been personal. Like I've always I think of the players as, they graduate and move on, and I can stay in contact with them. But they're always like, you took the time to get me to know me as a person, and get to know who I am and how I operate. And so I think that comes down to the holding space idea in counseling. You're sitting there and you ask questions, and it's and you listen. So I think those counseling skills are crucial.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea being that the skill set necessary for a coach, and then magnified at the D1 level, because you're at the top of the food chain, so to speak,
Sure.
collegiately. You just
Sure.
the number of skills that you have to do that well is just really incredible. And then, like you mentioned, there's the technical piece, there's the tactical piece. So you have to understand scheduling and budgeting and strength and conditioning and physiology and all these different arenas. And then clearly sports psychology is just this huge piece of it, of just helping these athletes maximize their potential and ultimately identify and eliminate whatever interferences they have that get in the way of them being at their potential.
Yeah.
And you're just in such a great spot to be able to help do that.
I have a lot. I have a lot. And I think, I'm just thinking in the coach's realm, but it'd be interesting to have some sports psych and some psych background for the coaches, just in terms of being able to understand what you're seeing. Not even necessarily the interaction you're having or utilizing the information, but just understanding what you're seeing and what's going on with your team would be huge.
Perceptionally. The first piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you could, it's that like you'd mentioned application. It's very, like, I find it very important to have theoretical pieces that I'm working off of, and then figure out how to go about application and shifting between those two. But that's taken years and years and years of experience. And then you have to have the buy-in and the trust and kids that are willing to do it, which that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother piece to it. So, so it's interesting. And college tennis is very interesting because you typically have 8 kids on a team and 6 to 7 of them are playing. Whereas if you have soccer, you have 30 kids and maybe 14 are playing. So in our sport, and basketball, same way, it's a bigger roster, so less, you're relying on less.
So many minutes.
Yes. And you could in basketball, I feel, because I played basketball, it's my first love, you could have 2 guys or 2 players that went off that game and get 20 plus points, you're going to win. But in tennis, you need 5 points. So it's like, tennis is fascinating how you have to have, it's an individual sport. It's always going to be individual, but then you're going to have to find a way to gel as a team and get points. And it's a fascinating realm psychologically.
Yeah. Jason Brown talked about that at the collegiate level of how unique tennis is and this blend between individual and team.
Yeah, it is. And the it's not scary, but with the where kids are playing the specialization of sports. So where the specialization of sport is going, I'm getting more and more kids that just play tennis, and so they don't have any experiential knowledge on what it means to be a teammate. But in the recruiting processes, they want that, which is awesome.
Yes.
But to have them realize how hard it is, just like everything else in sport.
Being a good teammate is a skill.
Yes. How willing are you to be, or how self-aware are you? And then how much do you have awareness of other people and that skill in the listening and being compassionate and empathetic, which, now we're starting to move to values. And it's like, our society's it is descending into a funny space with lack of values as a society. And so how do the kids have that? And values, I think values are your superpower in terms of your resiliency against anxiety and depression and all those people. Like, do you know who you are? Like, are you self-aware? And do you know who you are? So that when failure happens and you can go into failure, you know who you are in terms of your values. And so, well, this is me. And that can help you separate from the outcome basis of different sports and life, really.
Yeah, navigate through tough times.
Yeah.
Wow. So one of the many things we have in common,
We have a lot in common.
you worked as a school
Scary.
psychologist
Yes.
for a couple years
Yes.
in the Portland school system. I was a school psychologist in Colstrip, Montana, of all places, for 3 years.
Nice.
How did this help in your personal development? Because that's a very challenging role, working as a school psychologist.
Yeah. So I did it for 2 years. I love assessment. And I'm fascinated. That's actually something I'm looking at a little bit more this year, moving forward. Every year I try to set some new ideas for coaching, because coaching honestly can get cerebrally kind of dull at points.
Yeah.
Like if you're just like, well, I want to coach this strategic or something. And I like cerebral. I like it exciting and challenging. So assessment was really good. And I think the one thing I learned in terms of when a kid came into special ed, we tested them. We did the intelligent testing, the behavioral testing, the academic. And again, very fortunate, because I went into it because it was a job that was available that paid me more. I was making $18,000 as a coach. And I was thinking about, we were probably getting married. And I was like, I can't, like, I have to somehow like be more provider to my family. It's old school, but it's real. It's real.
Yes.
Like you're not going to do anything without money. And yes, coaching was my passion, but there's this idea of a passion mindset and a craftsman's mindset. And in people that follow their passion, like follow your passion and go do your thing. A lot of times you don't get paid enough you don't get by living. You can't live.
Yeah.
And so reality was hitting me, pushing up against me. I wasn't getting a head coaching job. They just didn't, at those times, people were in the coaching businesses for like Chris Nord, 27 years or 30
Not
years.
a lot of turnover.
Not a lot of turnover. So wasn't getting a lot of breaks. So this job opened up. It paid me, I think I made $63,000. So I went from 18 to 63,000, and I was like, this is unbelievable. And so I started the school psych, but and again, because I was going into a realm I knew nothing about. And so I'm like, important plug, boom, find my mentors. Boom, I get my mentors. I am going to school at Lewis and Clark to get a school psych piece. But I got some mentors, and one of them was great in terms of the assessment piece. He's like, write that assessment, develop the assessment. And there were 20, 30, 40 pages of assessment when we'd first transition a student into special education. But really make that document explain how that kid works, not just how they present with how they present with their disability, but what is it about their intelligence or skills from those different mechanisms or those testing pieces you're using that explain, and how can that kid progress because they do have strengths. They do have means to learn, and so they don't just get bogged down with their disability. And so I think that was interesting, because it really, and the big part was the history, taking that personal history from kids and parents. And unfortunately, I worked in an area called Felony Flats in Portland in a middle school. So the parents didn't have, they were just surviving, so they didn't have history on their kids. But you could dig and figure out enough. But I think that piece of realizing that everybody has weaknesses. Everybody has things that if they want to, they can take a victimization role and say, well, I don't do that. And it's like, well, I spent 2 years connecting with kids that truly have all sorts of disabilities that could hamper them. But they would they would find ways to progress and do well and succeed and be awesome people and be around them. So I think the humanity and empathy and understanding of humans, like get to know who you're around. And I think there's already a way I was going with sports, but it just helped me that much more.
To translate that then into an athlete population.
Yeah. And realize like there's resources. I think I think it's important for, all our players to understand. It's like you have resources. I mean, we have Jen, Charisma, and as our academic advisor, and we have Blake down in the equipment room, and you have Haley in our training room, and Julia last year was our strength coach. And it's like, you guys have these resources, and it's people that are willing to help you, but the necessity of the players to learn to ask for help and to seek help and take the time to go learn and get that professionalism from other people is pretty important. But yeah, I think that school psych was it was a lot of fun. It was challenging.
It was very challenging.
Yeah, and it was and there were some really hard things, but it just taught you that it taught me too, shifting from being a coach to school psych. It just you can learn. You can pivot and you can go do whatever you want to do. Like that was not a passion job to go do it. I didn't even know it existed. But then I get there and I'm like, well, what's the skill? What's the skill? And so all I become focused on is like learning what's the new skills that I need to do job. And I spent a lot of time those 2 years not knowing that I was going to shift out of it again. But I spent a lot of time. I'd have something at school and you slow it. You do the counseling move again where you slow it down. You're like, and just be quiet. And then go home and learn. Like go home, figure it out until you come back tomorrow and maybe you have an answer, or find somebody like, oh, I think Susie has that answer. I'll go talk to her. So knowing that you don't always have to have the answer right now. Like you can take the time and come back and actually give a proper answer versus I don't know what the language things. There's bullshit answers where I feel like now we're in a society where we get a lot of that. Like here's the quick BS response, and like my dad always said, like, woo, he'd make the sound, woo woo, my BS meter's going off. That's sorry, Dad.
Yeah,
like, nice try.
Like a lot of that around.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah, but did you have the same experience? How long did you do the school psych?
3 years.
Yeah.
And then just interesting dynamic, like all places. And the school system just off reservation, and so we had about a third of the student population was American Indian then, which was just fascinating.
Yeah.
And it helped galvanize, like you said, some skill sets that I had. It helped me identify some areas where I needed improvement. But then ultimately it also helped me realize this isn't what I want to do. This isn't a passion job.
Right.
And I think I can have it all, perhaps, right? I can have a job that I'm passionate about that still pays my bills.
Right.
And then I found it. So for that, I'm very, very grateful for my school psych time, because it ultimately got me to a place that I was much happier with. And I wouldn't trade the experience for anything.
No, and you're around special education teachers who are, they're like hospice workers. They're beautiful
just
people.
Just the salt of the earth.
Yeah,
yes.
They're helping humanity move forward.
Yep.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you describe your leadership philosophy? I mean, you've touched on it, obviously some so far, but if you were nailed down with that question specifically, what's your response?
Yeah, they have different terms. I think the transformational leadership ideal, just recognizing people for who they are, getting to know who you're working with, who are the players, what makes them tick, asking them questions, getting them to create an open space for an exchange. I very much like it more of a collaborative role. As a coach than just me telling you what to do. So I like the collaboration role, and I'm authentic. I try to give them a glimpse of myself. I allow them to see myself fail, to take chances with certain things and to fail, which happens all the time in tennis. You're taking some guesses sometimes strategically. So I think just having a real relationship with the people, and then a big part of my piece too is just organization. So like when I go to practices, it's lined up. Everything's set up. I'm not having any guesswork, and that way I can play off it way more creatively if the everything's planned out.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's in the form of a pretty detailed practice
template,
plan.
yeah, and template, and then and I'm big. I mean, it again. There's some things that are challenging moving in the last 5 years. There's some massive shifts in how players are. I mean, it's different. I'm very much into deliberate practice, but people are more into fun now, into deliberate practice. But you don't get the 10,000 hours if it's fun hours. Like 10,000 fun hours doesn't get you anywhere. Like you need 10,000 deliberate. And in tennis, I would think tennis and piano are probably 10,000 hours. Violin. Track and field's probably like a 2,000 hour, right? Because you're just running, and some people have more strength and speed, their God-given ability.
Yeah.
So I think there's different sports just based technically that are a little bit longer and others that aren't. But but that deliberate practice is a big piece for me, and progression. Like I love to work with players that are I'm goal oriented. I think it's hard to progress if you don't know your goals and what you want to do with your life. So, but there's a lot to it. And I think the challenges for me is there is a lot to it. And can you help kids progress and take some of these ideas and go with them?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm big into self-determination theory. Like I'm trying to help them with autonomy, because I think the more and more kids are showing up, their parents do way too much for them. Their parents don't let them fail.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get here, and it's like unfortunately, they're having to learn that now. And those are some hard lessons to learn in college when you're fighting for a Division I spot to play in a lineup. And you should have been failing in high school.
Before.
And learning how to handle failure versus I'm not starting on my junior soccer team, so I'm going to shift organizations and play on a starter on this team. Like, that's not an answer. That's not anything learned from that, except that you bought your kid a new spot, So I can definitely tell I'm aging, because I wouldn't say calloused, but I can see things, and I'm like, failure is a massive part of success. And right now I find it more challenging in that realm to allow kids to fail. And so I think 3 years ago we were on a run of years and years where our team wasn't very good. And so I had to I was that person. I was actually enabling. So they were going from high school to college, and I was enabling a lot of our players to it's okay, you're not, and I realized I was like, oh my gosh, I have to let them fail. And it's brutal, so can I be there for them? Can I hold space? Or can I provide safety? Like, is this a safe environment? Is it a space that you can fail? But realizing that you fail, and this is where you learn. Like, this is that sweet juice.
Yeah.
That's good. If you can hang on and deal with this failure and figure out what skills you're missing and what you need to work on to improve, you can get to this success that you're never going to get to otherwise.
Yeah, it's an opportunity.
Yeah. So I think that's a challenge for me, is doing that, because a lot of these kids, I'm watching them, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the first time you're failing, and no, I'm not going to rescue you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just to review, right, self-determination theory, a theory of motivation.
Yep.
And that ultimately the belief in the theory is that our motivation comes from being autonomous. So in
Yep.
other words, we feel like we're in control of our
Yes.
vessel. We're the captains of our own ship.
Yes.
And then competence, We're
Competence.
motivated when we feel like we're good at something.
Yes. You're building skill.
Yep. And then the last one is relatedness. When
Yep.
we feel like we're connected with
Yes.
a teammate, a coach, somebody, then we tend to be more highly motivated because we're feeling that connection.
Yeah.
And the theory in some then believing that when we have those three things taken care of,
We can be successful.
we can be really successful.
Yeah. And it feeds into multiple theories.
Right.
I think, but I think those theories for me, are very important to kind of understand, like, hey, where are they on these progressions?
Mm-hmm.
And are we moving in those progressions? And I think that's where I'm really fascinated, because it's shifting. It's not a bad thing. Like, I think, I think then it's my job as a coach to be like, okay, this is the environment that exists now. What can I provide to help them still maintain these paths to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, you want to provide them a template going from point A to point B in college that they can replicate with any job outside of this. Okay, what do I need? Who are my mentors? What skill set do I need? A lot of the anxiety comes because they're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of being like, I hear a lot of this, like, well, I'm good enough. And it's like, well, you're avoiding it and you're creating resistance, and that's going to create greater anxiety versus like, okay, take a step back and say, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I got to get better.
No, and I think as a college player, I look back and I'm like, that was me the whole time. It's not mentally healthy, but I think it's a much better mindset than I'm great. I'm just not doing this. But if I play my game, tomorrow will be great. And it's like, it's never going to be great. Like,
Yeah.
You're just never going to progress. And so I think creating assessments so we can get a baseline of where people are on a lot of different metrics. And then for them to tuck into that autonomy piece, them to choose, where do you want to go with this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what skills do you want to focus on? Like, when you show up to practice, do you know what you're working on today? Now it's deliberate versus like, yeah, I'm having a good practice today. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, and then what happens for me as a coach, I'm just like, this is just, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun, but
It's D1 athletics. So
the whole point of this thing is, if you want to be good, you win. And whether and what's interesting is we're now in a resource-driven world,
Yeah.
and the resources are diminishing for some and exceeding for others. But the reality is, like, why is Hunter Mackus, a guy sitting at the front desk, answering phones, doing great stuff at our athletic department, why is he going and finishing top 5 in a 100-mile race around Mount Hood? Because he's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And he cares about it. No one's paying him any money,
Mm-hmm.
but he's phenomenal. He goes and he talks to other elite distance runners, and he does other things, and he's asking questions. I'm like, this guy might be the best athlete in our athletic department.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, but these are all free things that every single one of these 300 plus kids can do, is ask the questions and figure out, like, hey, where do you want to go with this? Because it's about, like, you're now here and your window's closing, right? You got
Real
4
quickly
years.
behind you. Yep.
Yeah, and it could close faster if you screw around, because there's going to be maybe a player that comes in hungry. And now once they're in, you're on the outside looking in. It's hard to get back in. So I think it's awesome because we have everything in the spectrum between success and failure all over the board. But it's like, all these young adults they have everything at their fingertips, no matter what they're doing, or honestly, what they're doing out there academically or like arts, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we all have the ability to do this. It doesn't cost anything but your will, like your drive.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. This is really on point with kind of a lot of what you just talked about. In an interview you did with Colin Fair, who's a mutual colleague of ours,
Yes,
right?
fantastic
Colin
human.
was a student of mine. He was a fellow coach with you here at one point. In an interview you did with him, you were quoted as saying, "My greatest challenge is giving athletes chances to succeed, but also knowing when it is not working and being willing to let the athlete fail on their own. The greatest lessons we learn in life come from moments where we get cut from a sport or fail and learn that if we care enough, we will figure out the next step and learn how to get back in the arena.
Well said.
So you said it, which a great quote in so many ways. The question that pops into my mind then is how do you know, when do you move from coaching them up to you got this, you're going to have to take it, it's all up to you now. I mean, that right, there's got to be dynamic tension between those two.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
how do you navigate that space?
It's a great one. I mean, it's a great question, and it's might be one of the biggest things we're trying to figure out right now as coaches. You do some probing, you do a little bit of probing to find out how much can the athletes do right now? How much load can they take in terms of failure? Because you can't dump it all on them and just like destroy them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it can't just be positive. So, I mean, if we look at the framework, it's like if the kids are starting sports at 6 to 12, it should be a positive. It should be like 4 positives. Like, God, and there's so many things in our realm that it's almost like self-helpy. Like the sandwich, a positive, a negative, a positive. And then I was in a master coaching class, and they're like, he was talking about Gen Z, and it was this specialist, and he's like, now it's like a double sandwich. It's a positive, a negative, a positive, and then another positive. And I'm like, well, you're negating the negative, which is the piece that they need.
Yeah.
So I think, but I've heard more and more from the athletes. It's like, and I feel like I'm honestly a pretty positive coach. And Jason Brown's always like, oh my gosh, if I was as positive as you, because he's like, I'm somewhere in between you and Chris Nord, because Chris Nord was hard, but a brilliant coach.
Yes.
Like, I think Chris is one of the top coaches I've seen in terms of him helping craft in terms of people's development of their games. I mean, his teams were going for it every year.
Yeah.
I don't know if he got enough recognition, to be honest with you. But it's that idea of, well, we do have to provide them honesty, and they have to take feedback. I mean, that's coachable, right? So if you're coachable, you can take criticism, constructive criticism, not you're a dumbass, like, why didn't you catch that ball?
Not a personal attack.
Like that's not it. But if you can't accept constructive criticism, like, hey, we need to hit the ball harder. Hey, I need you to cut off that ball. I need you to do a little more work. You're not going to be any good.
Yeah.
And you're not coachable. And so I think, but I've had some players in the past that have been like, you need to be more positive. It's like, that's from 0 to 12. And once you decide, probably around 14, 15, hopefully, right? And hopefully that's why they let kids have fun until 14 or 15. And because at some point in time, if you're an athlete, you want to make the shift, like, I want to be good at this. And then that's when the transition, it's like, moment happens, and the fun is becoming great at something, not this is
juice
fun.
And snacks
and
running around the pool at the hotel, on the travel team.
So you can't do it. You can't do it anymore. And I feel like we're kind of, that's a hard spot. I mean, my hat's off for coaches out in anywhere coaching juniors between the ages of 12 and 15, because we're seeing nationwide the numbers kids keep dropping out of sports or around those ages. But how do they handle that transition between the positivity and the ability to give people criticism, and for the kids to take it? Like, you missed that game day, you didn't start. That was your lesson, wake up call on why is that, and what's funny is you hear, I'm trying to think of they had a forward for the women's national team. She's the one that kicked the goal over the Japanese. The goaltender was out, and she kicked it from halfway, and she scored the goal. She scored 4 goals to win either the World Cup or the gold. She's from the East Coast somewhere. Maybe she played at Rutgers. Can't remember her name. But she talked about her seminal moment is she's cut when she was 14 from the U.S. national team. And then she's like, I'm never being cut again. And so, I had a player that came here from Minnesota. I'm forgetting her name, but I said, if you come here, if you do awesome, I'll get you into a scholarship. I pulled her in March. I said, hey, you're not meeting any of these things. There's no scholarship coming. Parent called irate. And I said, call 48 hours. Never call again. Mm-hmm. But this kid was like, and I explained to him how, I always tell him, like, I was cut in high school playing basketball. And at the time, I didn't understand. If I had a time to reflect, I could be like, well, I wasn't a good teammate. I wasn't running the coaches' systems. I wasn't doing what the coaches were asking. I was playing good basketball, but I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing in a system. And so I was cut, and rightly so. And that for me was a seminal moment because I did not want to ever be cut again. But if my dad had been, like, I went home and I was like, Dad, I got cut. And he's like, yeah, you did something wrong. Like, the classic parent thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so I didn't get an out. So I had to figure it out. And that's what's so beautiful about this girl is she came back, she worked really hard. She wasn't able to do it, but then she transferred and she got a scholarship for her last 2 years and she had a pretty good thing. And I'm like, that might have been the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So I think it's, I think these things, and, I talk to these kids, I'm like, when you come in, you got to be ready to roll. It's like there's no downtime in college sports.
No, especially your sport. You're both semesters.
You better run. Like, you better be and figure out, is there a skill? Like, are you good enough that you can't be ignored? Because mm-hmm. There is some bureaucracy maybe in sports, but the reality is that no coach is going to play a kid that's going to help the team win.
It's a meritocracy, ultimately.
It is, ultimately. Mm-hmm. I mean,
mm-hmm.
It could be like if maybe somebody's parents paying the coach, like, and it's getting weird out there paying the coach, like, maybe that could happen, but it's not. That's an outlier.
That's not the norm.
No, that's an outlier.
Yeah.
So, for me, failure's been crucial, and I probably wear that. I probably as a human, like you'd mentioned some accolades, and I'm like, this stuff doesn't even matter. It matters to me, but it's like, I always feel like for some reason I'm like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the mountain.
Yeah.
Like, the journey's way more interesting to me than the other piece.
Yeah, and a lot of those are outside our control anyway, right?
That's
we don't decide, we
so
don't dictate
true.
it, so why should I worry
true.
too much about it? Because I don't directly influence that. If a Coach of the Year award comes, awesome.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
But I thought, honestly, some of my best years, like COVID, I thought that was one of my best coaching years. Yeah. Like, COVID was hard, and I felt like our kids did a really good job. Like, I did a pivot, and they enjoyed their year. Mm-hmm. Which wasn't easy mentally. So I think some of those years that we didn't have good, I was like, I was coaching my ass off.
Yeah.
just
navigate through.
No, and that's the thing. You get lucky. I mean, the reality is you get lucky, or everyone kind of goes the right. I mean, I think 2 years ago we won. We were picked. I think that's like one of the lowest teams ever to get picked, like at a preseason poll, like 6, and win a championship.
Yeah, you're in non-conference matches. The team was not that good, right? And then the conference rolls around and things just started clicking.
Yeah, but we hadn't had anybody really on the team that had won more than 50% of their matches ever, and all of them did. Mm-hmm. And so that was really cool. But it's hard. You ask the players, and they're like, that was brutal.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, but it's beautiful. And so I think it's, sports is just like life. You know, you've lived, you have kids and marriages and friends and health of others and aging parents. It's like, dude, welcome to the real. Why not you do this? Why not and dive into this beauty of college sports and into the challenges and how it is hard and how it is beautiful, and then as we progress, you're like, oh my gosh, I can handle this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm a huge believer in that art of motorcycle maintenance book, like the romantic and the reality, and like where is that?
Oh yeah,
that spot. It's a beautiful book written that way.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're always looking for ways to grow and improve. It seems that's one thing that just stands out to me so much with regard to your approach. So what's next in your development?
Man. You'd mentioned the CMPC license. I would really like to start doing more educational stuff with teams, like psychoeducational, sports psychoeducational pieces with juniors and pieces like that, and just progressing in that direction a little bit more for sure. Yeah.
The sports psych
Yeah.
sorts of, but it's kind of bigger than sports psych too, somewhat.
Yeah, it's human. I mean, the more I'm into sports psych, the more it pulls me back into more the psych realm in general. It's interesting to watch the sports psych. I've talked to a lot of kids that are like really interested in studying sports psych. The thing that's really fascinating me about a lot of these kids is they're playing sports and they're not utilizing the skills while they're athletes, but yet they want to go teach people how to use sports psych. And so it's a fascinating thing, because I know we have a minor in it, which is awesome. I think it's a cool avenue for kids to utilize to go build self-awareness and awareness of others, and then if they want to go help people do like more clinical and psych stuff and get into the nuts and bolts of it, but do it while you're an athlete.
Right.
Like practice with it, because the application process is fascinating compared to the theoretical. Like they're both super important. But it's a fascinating realm, like because everyone's different. So you're like, well, I did this with Jimmy, and it didn't work with Timmy. My gosh, nothing worked.
No, something will work.
Something,
but it wasn't this.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of the psych, and this is where I'm fascinated with clients or working with people, is it's hard work. Like, and I think they think like sports psych versus psychology. The sports psych, they're thinking positive. And it's like, it's hard. It's hard because you're trying to change mental habits. Like you're trying to create a new direction in terms of your behaviors and your emotional context. So I'm fascinated by metacognition right now. That's one area. But I'm trying, what I'm trying to do is I'm so focused. Like every week I try to do an hour of looking at research and stuff. I love that. So I know the hard thing for me is going out and doing application with people, because I like just learning myself. So I'm recognizing that that's possibly avoidant personality piece. And I'm like, okay, I got to
put it into practice somehow.
Yes. And in a fascinating realm, what I'm learning is a lot of people like, oh, like they hear it, that's exciting. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if anybody will come around, and they don't. And which is cool. But I'm fascinated by how the things that I've done, I've gone out and pushed for. And it's just that reminder to myself. It's like, that's constantly how life is for all of us. It's like, if you want something, you have to go do it. It's not going to just magically happen. Yeah. Which I think is just an awesome message for all of us to remember. Yeah. We got to go make it happen.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I think that's a great way to end it. Hey, you should trademark that slogan.
Awesome.
Steve Ascher, thanks so much. That's going to do it
Okay.
for this episode of the Montana Grizzly Leadership Project. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next time when we continue our conversations with other head coaches on this fascinating topic of leadership.
Thank you, Charlie. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.